All right, next I would invite Scott Butcher from the Avon Otakaro Forest Park to the table. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for the chance to present. So yes, I'm the co-chair of Avon Otakaro Forest Park, and I've got 5 key points that relate to my submission. So basically, firstly, while we acknowledge the impact of COVID-19 on council budgets and the necessary need for reducing reductions in spending, we support the allocation of adequate funding for ecological restoration across Christchurch, and in particular the Avon Otakaro River Corridor. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk in council of this a climate and biodiversity emergency, and we would like to see funding continue to support and address those issues because they are essential. Christchurch City Council has clearly been a leader in a lot of ecological restoration, and we'd like to see that maintained certainly into the future. So when reading through the annual plan, it's difficult to determine from the plan what funding has been allocated to the red zone for ecological restoration. While we understand there has been 25 million, I think, allocated, for the actual annual planning process and to read the document, it's very difficult to understand in that plan what is going to be directed towards the ecological restoration component. So we would like to see that made more transparent if that's possible. Thirdly, volunteer projects in the red zone require adequate resourcing. The group that I belong to, Avon Otakaro Forest Park, we have 9 leasehold sites or 9 leased sites within the red zone. Now, as part of our leases, we have to maintain certain elements of our sites, and that falls on us. So elements such as fencing of those sites, and for a small group, those aspects are quite expensive. So again, what we're sort of saying is that for the budget that's coming up, we would like to see that adequate money is allocated towards supporting volunteer groups doing ecological restoration activities. Yeah, I mean, my assumption is that money obviously will come from the 25 million, but again, it's not clear as to how that will filter down to volunteer groups. My point 4 is in the original draft plan, it mentioned that I think 3 years out from now, 2022, 23 or something like that, Horseshoe Lake Reserve was going to receive a lot of money for a boardwalk. Now, what we would like is that money, if possible, is allocated in capital expenditure for Horseshoe Lake Reserve in the next year, because the money that we've been accessing through the park rangers is operational, and we would like to see, if possible, capital expenditure for restoration activities allocated for the reserve. And there's a number of reasons that. One of them is obviously it's symbolic, but it also shows that there's committed funding to carry out restoration plantings within the reserve. And basically the last point, one of the last points is that essentially I've been doing a fair bit of work in engaging with people around some of the emerging issues within the red zone, and one of those is that there are really quite substantive weed issues occurring or that are on the horizon. So again, what we would like to see is that there is adequate resource allocated for some of these weeds issues. Speaking to specialists who have really focused in on the weeds, they're looking, a lot of the weed issues are going to exponentially increase within the red zone. So the time is now to get onto some of those issues and address some of those issues. So essentially, I guess those are my main points. If there's any questions, yeah, fire them at me.
Thank you very much. Are there questions? Jimmy.
Mention the wholesale the budget. There's a capital item, capital program or operation cost. How much?
For I think it's 2022-23. It was 98,000 allocated to boardwalks.
Yes. And
what we're sort of saying is we think that some of that capital funding should come into this financial year that's coming up, and for restoration activities. So replanting native forest in areas where they can be replanted.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for the time taken to make the submission this morning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.